The Mediterranean world in the 3rd century BC was a prone arena of giants. Two civilizations, each forged in fire, each hungry for dominance, stood locked in a struggle that would decide the fate of the ancient world. Carthage, a city born from Phoenician ambition, grown into an empire of trade and war. Its wealth stretched from the coasts of North Africa to the shores of Spain and Sicily, and its navy ruled the Western Sea. Rome, a republic tempered by centuries of conquest. Its armies built not on hired soldiers, but on citizen legions, men who fought for land, for honor, and for the eternal glory of the Senate and people of Rome. They had already fought once. The First Punic War, lasting 23 brutal years, had stripped Carthage of Sicily and left her humiliated, burdened with crushing war reparations, her navy broken, and her pride in ruins. But Carthage did not forget, and one man above all others burned with the need for revenge. His name was Hannibal Barca, a general who had never been defeated in the field, forced to watch his city surrender at the negotiating table. Before sailing to conquer Hispania and rebuild Carthaginian power, Hamilcar allowed his young son to join him, but only after the boy swore a solemn oath. He would be an eternal enemy of Rome. That boy's name was Hannibal. Hannibal grew up on campaign. He learned war not from books, but from dust and blood, watching his father maneuver armies, listening to veterans speak of Rome. By the time he took command of Carthage's forces in Hispania, at age 26, he was already a master of the art. In 219 BC, Hannibal struck. He besieged Saguntum, a city allied with Rome, knowing that doing so would mean war. After 8 months, the city fell. Rome was outraged. The Senate sent envoys to Carthage demanding satisfaction, and when Carthage refused, they declared war. The Second Punic War had begun. But Hannibal had no intention of waiting for Rome to come to him. He had already conceived a plan so audacious that the Romans could barely imagine it, one that would bring war directly to the heart of Italy. In the spring of 218 BC, Hannibal set out from Cartagena with an army of roughly 90,000 men, infantry from Africa and Iberia, fearsome Numidian horsemen, and nearly 40 war elephants. His destination, the Italian peninsula itself. The route he chose was one that would have made any sane commander hesitate. He would cross the Pyrenees, march through hostile Gallic territory, ford the mighty Rhone River, and then, most impossibly, traverse the Alps in late autumn. The crossing of the Alps remains one of the most remarkable feats in military history. For 15 days, the army fought not Romans, but nature itself: avalanches, freezing temperatures, narrow ledges, and ambushes by mountain tribes. At one dreadful gorge, local tribesmen blocked the path and sent boulders crashing down on the column. Hannibal himself had to lead the rearguard through the night, torches blazing, while his engineers cleared the road for the elephants. When at last they descended into Italy, the army that emerged was a shadow of what had set out. Only 20,000 infantry and 6,000 cavalry remained, along with a handful of battered elephants. But they were in Italy, and Hannibal's gamble had paid off. The shock in Rome was profound. No foreign enemy had set foot in Italy since the Gauls sacked the city nearly 2 centuries before. The Senate scrambled to respond, sending its best generals north with fresh legions to crush this invader before he could do more damage. At the Trebia River in December 218 BC, Hannibal baited the Roman consul Sempronius into attacking across the freezing river before his men had eaten breakfast. While Roman infantry fought bravely in the center, Carthaginian cavalry shattered both flanks, and a hidden force of 2,000 men struck from the rear. It was a catastrophe. Rome lost perhaps 25,000 men. The survivors fled back across the Trebia in the frozen dark. Hannibal had won his first great battle on Italian soil, and he had done it by using the Romans' own aggression against them. The following year brought an even greater catastrophe. at Lake Trasimene in central Italy, Hannibal lured a Roman army under consul Gaius Flaminius into a trap so perfectly set that the Romans walked into it without even realizing it. In the space of 3 hours, in thick morning fog, a Roman army of 30,000 men was destroyed. Flaminius himself died in the fighting. So complete was the slaughter that men fought and died in the lake itself, drowning in their armor. Rome had never suffered anything like it. The news reached Rome in the words that would become infamous: "We have been defeated in a great battle." The city prepared for siege. Priests performed emergency sacrifices. Citizens prayed to every god they knew. And the Senate took an extraordinary step. They appointed a dictator, Quintus Fabius Maximus, a cautious, methodical man who understood what none of his predecessors had grasped: that Hannibal could not be beaten in open battle. He must be worn down, starved, isolated. Rome would not fight. Rome would wait. For months, Fabius shadowed Hannibal's army through the Italian countryside, cutting off foragers, attacking stragglers, denying supplies, but never committing to a pitched battle. It was sound strategy. It was also deeply unpopular. The Romans called Fabius the delayer, and they did not mean it as a compliment. With Hannibal burning the fields of allied Italian cities, the pressure to act was immense. The citizens of Rome wanted revenge, not caution. They wanted blood. When Fabius's term ended in 216 BC, the Romans chose 2 new consuls to lead the war. Lucius Aemilius Paulus was experienced and cautious, a man who had seen what Hannibal could do. His colleague, Gaius Terentius Varro, was the opposite: bold, aggressive, and hungry for glory. Together, they commanded the largest army Rome had ever assembled: 8 full legions, plus allied infantry and cavalry, a force of roughly 86,000 men. The Senate's message was clear: they were done waiting. Hannibal would be crushed by sheer weight of numbers. Hannibal, meanwhile, had moved south into the fertile grain-growing region of Apulia. Near the town of Cannae on the Aufidus River, he captured the Roman supply depot, cutting off their grain. If Rome wanted its food back, it would have to fight, and fight they would. Hannibal studied the terrain and his enemy. He knew what the Romans would do. They always did the same thing. Their strength was in their legions, heavy infantry, disciplined and fierce, packed together in mass formations that drove forward like a battering ram. He would use that against them. His own army was smaller, roughly 50,000 men, but it was not numbers he was counting on. It was something more subtle, more lethal, a tactical vision that no Roman general had ever imagined and would not understand until it was too late. On the night of August 1st, 216 BC, the 2 armies lay within sight of each other's fires. In the Roman camp, the debate that had plagued the entire campaign erupted one final time. Varro was adamant: attack at dawn with the full army. Their numbers were overwhelming. Crush Hannibal now, before he could maneuver. Paulus warned caution. The terrain was flat and open, ideal for enemy cavalry. They should find better ground. As always, the 2 men could not agree. The Roman system of alternating command between the 2 consuls meant that Varro would have supreme command the following morning, and Varro had already decided: tomorrow there would be a battle. In the legionary camps, 86,000 men prepared for the morning. Most were confident. The enemy was outnumbered nearly 2 to 1. Rome had never lost a battle when it could bring its full weight to bear. By sunset tomorrow, Hannibal would be dead or in chains. Across the plain, Hannibal did not sleep. He walked his lines, spoke with his officers, checked the positions of every unit. He had spent his entire life preparing for a moment like this. He knew exactly what he was going to do. The question was whether his men could execute it. August 2nd, 216 BC. The sun rose blood-red over the plain of Cannae. A hot, dry wind, known as the Vulturnus, blew from the south. directly into the faces of the Romans as they formed their battle lines. Hannibal, who had chosen his ground carefully, had even the weather on his side. Varro deployed his army in the conventional Roman manner, but with one crucial change. Worried about Hannibal's superior cavalry, he packed the legions far more densely than usual, making the infantry formation deeper and narrower, hoping to punch through the center like a massive fist. Hannibal's deployment was the work of a genius. In the center, he placed his weakest troops, Gallic and Iberian infantry, and formed them into a convex crescent, bulging toward the Romans. On each end of the center, he stationed his African veterans, armed in captured Roman equipment. His cavalry he divided between both flanks. To the men in the center, Hannibal gave a mission that sounded like a death sentence. Hold the line as long as you can. Give ground slowly. Let the Romans push you back. Do not break. What he did not tell them yet was that they were the bait in the greatest trap ever set. On the left flank near the river, his heavy Spanish and Gallic cavalry under his officer, Hasdrubal, faced the Roman citizen cavalry. On the right, his Numidian horsemen, the finest light cavalry in the ancient world, faced the Italian allied horse. Both cavalry wings had critical roles to play in what was to come. The battle began with the cavalry. On the Roman right, pressed against the Aufidus River with no room to maneuver, the citizen cavalry clashed with Hasdrubal's heavy horsemen. It was brutal, grinding combat, the kind the Romans were good at. But Hasdrubal had more men and more skill. The Roman cavalry was crushed. Those who could fled upstream. Hasdrubal did not pursue them. He had other orders. Reforming his horsemen with practiced discipline, he turned and began riding the entire length of the battlefield, behind the fighting lines, toward the other flank. Meanwhile, on the Roman left, the Numidians performed their own kind of masterpiece. They did not charge the Italian allied cavalry. They tormented them, feigning retreats, circling back, hurling javelins from range. They kept the Italian horse fully occupied and off balance. At the center, the legions advanced. Drums beat, trumpets blared, and 86,000 Roman soldiers moved forward in disciplined ranks, shields locked, javelins ready. They struck the Carthaginian center like a hammer, and the center bent. Exactly as Hannibal had planned, the Gauls and Iberians fought hard and retreated slowly. The Roman legions pushed forward, pressing deeper and deeper into what was now becoming a curved pocket. From above, the Carthaginian line had changed from a convex arc to a concave one. The Romans were walking into a bowl. Now Hannibal's masterstroke unfolded. The African veterans on both wings, who had been standing nearly idle while the center fought, pivoted inward. Left and right, they turned and marched toward the flanks of the Roman mass. The jaws of the trap began to close. Inside the press of battle, the individual Roman soldier could see nothing but the enemy in front of him. He did not know that his flank was being rolled up. He did not know that the cavalry battle was already decided. He only knew to push forward, to fight, to survive. And so the legions pushed deeper still, packing themselves ever tighter. At that moment, Hasdrubal's cavalry arrived. Having ridden the length of the battlefield unseen, they fell upon the rear of the Italian allied horsemen, who were still tangled with the Numidians. Caught front and rear, the Italian cavalry broke and fled. The last Roman horsemen were gone. The encirclement was complete. 70,000 Roman soldiers, packed so tightly they could barely raise their shields, were surrounded on every side. Hasdrubal's cavalry now drove into the Roman rear. African infantry pressed the flanks. The Gauls and Iberians, sensing their moment, stopped retreating and pushed back. What followed was not a battle, it was a slaughter. The Romans were packed so tightly in the pocket that soldiers could not use their weapons effectively. Men in the rear pressed forward onto the swords of their own comrades. The screaming was so loud, ancient sources say, that it could be heard for miles. Some fought with extraordinary courage, hurling themselves at the encircling walls of enemies. trying to carve an escape. A few succeeded in breaking through. Perhaps 14,000 Romans escaped the killing ground that day, but for the rest, there was no hope. The killing lasted for hours. When it ended, somewhere between 50 and 70,000 Romans lay dead on the plain of Cannae. Among them were 80 senators, 2 quaestors, 29 military tribunes, and one of the 2 consuls, Lucius Aemilius Paulus, who had warned against the battle from the start. Paulus, badly wounded and unhorsed, refused all offers to carry him to safety. He had opposed the battle. He would not flee its consequences. He died on the field, surrounded by the bodies of his soldiers. In Rome's history, it was an act of honor that would be remembered for centuries. Varro, who had commanded the battle, survived. He rode to the nearby town of Venusia with about 70 horsemen, all that remained of the army he had led to disaster. He would return to Rome eventually, and the Senate, in a remarkable gesture, thanked him publicly for not despairing of the Republic. They needed every man they could find. As the battle ended, Hannibal, Hannibal's brilliant cavalry commander, urged his general to march on Rome immediately. "Within 5 days, you shall feast in the capital," he reportedly said. But Hannibal refused. Whether from caution, lack of siege equipment, or strategic calculation, he would not march on Rome. Hannibal's response has echoed through history. "Truly, the gods have not given all their gifts to one man," he said. "You know how to win victory, Hannibal, but you do not know how to use it." It is a debate historians still argue today. Was Cannae the moment the war could have been won and wasn't? The news arrived in Rome in fragments. At first, no one understood the scale of what had happened. Then the survivors began staggering in, dust-covered, weaponless, some still bleeding, and the city understood that something unprecedented had occurred. Panic gripped the city. Some citizens began loading their families onto ships. Rumors flew that Hannibal was already at the gates. Women abandoned their houses to fill the streets, demanding news. The Senate debated emergency measures in an atmosphere of barely controlled hysteria. And then something remarkable happened. The Senate did not despair. Led by men of iron principle, the Roman Republic began to do what it always did in moments of supreme crisis. It found its spine. No peace envoys would be sent. No negotiations opened. Hannibal would receive nothing from Rome except the sword. Citizens donated their wealth. Slaves were freed and armed to serve as legionaries. Boys too young for service were recruited anyway. The minimum property qualification for military service was lowered, then eliminated entirely. Rome would fight with every man, woman, and coin it possessed. It was an extraordinary act of desperation and defiance. 2 slave legions, roughly 8,000 men, were formed and sent to reinforce the surviving Roman forces in the south. In their darkest hour, Rome had broken one of its most fundamental social boundaries. They would not yield. In the wake of Cannae, Hannibal's strategy began to bear fruit. Numerous Italian allies, including the wealthy and powerful city of Capua, second only to Rome itself in Italy, defected to the Carthaginian side. It seemed as if the entire structure of Roman power in Italy might unravel. The alliance with Capua was a major strategic gain. The city could provide supplies, reinforcements, and a base of operations in central Italy. Hannibal also secured alliances with King Philip V of Macedonia and with the powerful city of Syracuse in Sicily, threatening Rome on multiple fronts simultaneously. But Capua also posed a danger of a different kind. Hannibal's army had been marching and fighting for years. The soldiers needed rest, resupply, and time to recover. In the comfort of Capua's warm climate and abundant provisions, some of the edge that had made the army invincible began, almost imperceptibly, to soften. Rome, chastened but unbowed, returned to the Fabian strategy with a vengeance. New generals, wiser now, haunted by the lesson of Cannae, refused to be drawn into pitched battle. Instead, They methodically worked to cut Hannibal off from supplies, besiege his allies, and grind him down through attrition. The trap slowly reversed. Hannibal could win every battle, but could not be everywhere at once. When Rome besieged Capua with 2 armies, Hannibal marched to its relief. But the Romans simply held their siege lines and ignored him. For the first time, Hannibal's tactical brilliance had no answer to Roman stubbornness. In desperation, Hannibal marched directly toward Rome, hoping the sight of his army beneath the walls would draw the Roman forces away from Capua. Roman sources say he rode up to within sight of the city gates. But Rome did not flinch. The legions at Capua did not move, and Hannibal had no siege equipment to take the city. Capua fell. The Senate made an example that terrified every other allied city in Italy. The leading men of Capua were executed. The city's magistracies dissolved, and its citizens reduced to non-citizen status. Betraying Rome, it turned out, cost more than it gained. While Hannibal remained undefeated in Italy, Rome found a new weapon. His name was Publius Cornelius Scipio, a young man who had survived both the Trebia and Cannae, who had watched his father die in Spain, and who burned with a cold fire that the older Romans could barely understand. At an age when most Romans were still junior officers, Scipio was given command of the Spanish theater of the war. He was 26. His mission: destroy Carthaginian power in Spain and cut off Hannibal's supply lines and reinforcements from his home base. In a single brilliant campaign, Scipio captured Carthago Nova, the capital of Carthaginian Spain, by launching a surprise attack at low tide that allowed his soldiers to wade around the city's defenses. In one stroke, he had seized Carthage's Spanish treasury, its supply base, and hostages from dozens of allied tribes. At the Battle of Ilipa in 206 BC, Scipio defeated the last great Carthaginian army in Spain through a maneuver so sophisticated it echoed Hannibal's own at Cannae. Deploying his best troops on the flanks, his weaker allied troops in the center, and encircling the enemy before they understood what was happening. By 206 BC, Hispania was Roman. Hannibal's supply route from Spain was severed forever. No more Spanish silver, no more Iberian infantry, no more reinforcements from the west. The war's center of gravity was shifting, and Scipio was already looking beyond Spain, toward Africa, toward Carthage itself. While Scipio triumphed in Spain, Hannibal remained in Italy, but his position grew steadily weaker. Without adequate reinforcements from Carthage, without the alliance network that had sustained him, he was reduced to holding a shrinking enclave in the deep south of the peninsula. News from home was rarely good. Carthage was pressured on all sides, its finances strained, its political leadership divided. His brother Hasdrubal had attempted to march an army from Spain to reinforce him, a second crossing of the Alps that would have been the decisive moment of the war. But Hasdrubal was intercepted and destroyed at the Battle of the Metaurus River in 207 BC. His army was annihilated, and in one of the most chilling gestures in ancient warfare, the Romans catapulted his severed head into Hannibal's camp. For the first time, those who knew Hannibal said, they saw grief cross his face. "Now I know the fate of Carthage," he reportedly said. For 3 more years, Hannibal remained in Italy, undefeated but irrelevant. The Romans had learned. They would not fight him. They simply waited, watching him waste away in the south, while Scipio prepared the killing blow on a different stage entirely. In 204 BC, Scipio crossed to Africa. It was the boldest Roman strategic move of the war, and it immediately changed everything. With enemy soldiers now ravaging Carthaginian territory, burning farms and villages within sight of the city walls, the pressure on Carthage's government became unbearable. After 15 years in Italy, 15 years undefeated, 15 years of brilliance, Hannibal received the order he had always dreaded. Carthage recalled him home. The general who had humiliated Rome at Trebia Trasimene, and Cannae, boarded his ships and sailed away from Italy for the last time. Italian sources say local people came to watch the army depart, some in relief, some in something closer to mourning. For 15 years, Hannibal had been a constant presence on the peninsula, never conquered, never driven away. Now the sea swallowed his sails, and he was gone. Before the final battle, Hannibal and Scipio met. What they said to each other in private is recorded only in ancient sources of questionable accuracy. But both men understood what the meeting meant. One of them was going to win the war, and both of them knew it. At the Battle of Zama in 202 BC, Scipio faced a Hannibal who lacked his finest instrument, the superb Numidian cavalry that had won Cannae for him. Rome had stolen that advantage by allying with the Numidian king Massinissa. For the first time, Hannibal went into battle with inferior cavalry. Scipio had studied the master's methods. When the cavalry returned from pursuit and drove into Hannibal's rear, the encirclement was complete. This time, it was Carthaginian veterans in the killing pocket. This time, it was Hannibal's world falling apart. Cannae had come back to haunt its author. Zama was a Roman victory, as complete as Cannae had been a Carthaginian one. 20,000 Carthaginians died. Hannibal escaped with a handful of cavalry. The war was over. Carthage sued for peace on Rome's terms, losing Spain, its navy, its war elephants, and paying an indemnity that would take 50 years to pay off. Hannibal did not disappear from history after Zama. He became a suffete, a chief magistrate of Carthage, and worked to reform the city's finances and government. But Rome never forgot what he had done to them, and they pressured Carthage to hand him over for trial. Rather than be handed over, Hannibal fled into exile. For years, he wandered the eastern Mediterranean, serving as a military advisor to various kings who dared to challenge Rome. The Seleucid king Antiochus, then the Bithynian king Prusias, a brilliant mind still plotting against the empire that had outlasted him. In one theory we see, when he was perhaps 63 or 64 years old, Roman pressure finally closed in on his last refuge. With capture imminent, Hannibal took the poison he had carried with him for years. His reported final words, "Let us relieve the Romans of their fear, since they cannot wait for the death of an old man." He died undefeated in the field. In 16 years of campaign, no Roman general had ever beaten Hannibal Barca in a pitched battle. He had won every engagement his enemies gave him. In the end, it was not swords that killed him, but time, politics, and the sheer institutional endurance of Rome. The plain of Cannae was silent by evening on August 2nd, 216 BC. The killing had taken perhaps 6 hours. In that time, Hannibal's army had destroyed the largest Roman force ever assembled, killed more soldiers in a single afternoon than the United States lost on the beaches of Normandy. The Battle of Cannae became the model for military encirclement that every great captain would study for the next 2,000 years. Napoleon kept accounts of it on his campaigns. The German High Command studied it before devising their plans in both world wars. It is still taught in military academies today as the definitive example of tactical envelopment. What Hannibal achieved at Cannae was not merely a tactical innovation, it was a revelation. He understood that the goal of battle is not to push the enemy back, but to surround and destroy him. He created a situation where Roman strength, their mass, their numbers, their disciplined push, became the very mechanism of their own destruction. And yet, Rome survived. That is the other lesson of Cannae. The republic that absorbed the loss of 100,000 soldiers in 3 battles in 3 years, that fielded slave legions and armed its children, that buried its dead and built more armies. That republic was perhaps the most remarkable political organism in the ancient world. The Romans eventually went back to the plain of Cannae. They collected the remains of their dead, conducted proper burials, and built memorials. Among the bones of the slaughtered, archaeologists have found jewelry, weapons, and coins, the last possessions of soldiers who went to Apulia to crush a Carthaginian invader and never came home. Today, the plain is farmland. Wheat grows where legions died. The Aufidus River, now called the Ofanto, still winds its way to the Adriatic. Nothing marks the ground where the greatest military encirclement in ancient history unfolded on a hot August morning over 2,000 years ago. History remembers Cannae as Hannibal's masterpiece, but it also remembers Cannae as the battle that proved a deeper truth about power and endurance. That genius can win battles, but nations are not built from battles alone. Rome lost Cannae. It did not lose the war. And in that difference lies a lesson that echoes across every century since. The Battle of Cannae, August 2nd, 216 BC. The day a 30-year-old general from Carthage looked at the greatest army Rome had ever assembled and devised a trap so perfect that 2,000 years have not improved upon it. A day that changed the ancient world and taught every general who came after it what war could truly be.